Hi everyone! Welcome to the Neal's Yard Dairy subscription, which delivers 3 different artisan cheeses from around the British Isles to your door every month. That was terrible. Hi everyone! Welcome to the Neal's Yard Dairy subscription, which delivers 3 different handmade cheeses from around the British Isles to your door every month. For July, we are featuring Duckett's Caerphilly from Somerset, St. James from Cumbria, and Colston Bassett Stilton from Nottinghamshire. So, starting with Duckett's Caerphilly, this is a Caerphilly, which is at its heart a Welsh recipe. This is made in Somerset, which might sound strange, but actually there's quite a long relationship between Somerset cheddar makers also making Caerphilly recipes, because of course cheddars mature for quite a long time, upwards of a year. And so oftentimes cheddar makers in Somerset would kind of look over the waters to Wales and borrow their Caerphilly recipes to make an almost kind of cash cheese that they could sell at a much younger age, a few months old, to kind of keep their sales ticking over while their cheddars were maturing. So this is made by the team at Westcombe Dairy, who also make a cheddar. And the recipe comes from a renowned Somerset Caerphilly maker who was called Chris Duckett, so hence Duckett's Caerphilly. And they still mature this cheese on site in their dedicated Caerphilly maturing rooms in the cellar. Flavor-wise, it's a really beautiful spring summer cheese because it is quite fresh, it's milky, it has this beautiful kind of lactic, crumbly center, a bit of a more silky breakdown under the rind right here. And then the rind itself is really delicious. It's edible and adds a bit of a kind of earthy, mushroomy kick to it. So I really encourage you to kind of eat the entire cheese. A lot of flavor in the entire piece. And pairing-wise, it's a great one as well for lighter pairings, like a light white wine or a lager or cider. You know, I think cider and cheese is a beautiful pairing right there. So keep things on the lighter side because you don't want to overpower the cheese with a real kind of tannic red. But great, lovely little cheese right there. Duckett's Caerphilly. Next up is our sheep's milk cheese of the selection. This is St. James. And St. James is beautiful cheese. I love the rind on this. It's also edible again, this lovely kind of pink, orangey, blush rind. And the way they get this rind to look like this is they wash the cheese in a brine solution during its maturation. So for several weeks, they'll wash this continuously with a very light saline solution. And that activates different bacteria and different molds in the milk, in the air. And it creates kind of more funky, savory, unique flavors that you get in other washed rind cheeses like Munster or Stinking Bishop, etc. All these ones kind of washed with brine. And it's a cheese that really varies quite a bit throughout the season. So you might get a piece like this that looks quite orangey and pink, or there might be ones that arrive looking a bit more like the mold-ripened Caerphilly. It's not a defect or anything, it's just that the cheesemaker uses his own starter cultures made from his own soured milk to kind of kick off the fermentation of the cheese. And this means that the batches can be just quite variable because in every single batch there's slightly different bacteria, slightly different molds going on in there. So it's a kind of fun cheese to follow throughout the batches, throughout the seasons, and it can be a very different cheese every time you eat it. So quite a fun one to follow around. Sheep's milk cheese really in general is not very, very common in the UK. You know, of course, we've got a long history of sheep farming, but not a lot of sheep dairy making. So it's quite a unique cheese to have a sheep's milk cheese, but then also a washed rind sheep's milk cheese. So one more level of uniqueness. Lastly, we have Colston Bassett Stilton, which is this lovely cheese here, Colston Bassett Stilton. And this is, again, a very classic Stilton. So one of Britain's most well-known cheeses, of course. Only a few producers can actually make this cheese and call it Stilton because it is a protected name. So it means that it has to be made in a certain geographic region, to a certain recipe, and with pasteurized milk. That's part of the protection, is to be making with pasteurized milk. And they get their milk from a kind of co-op of 5 farms surrounding the dairy they've worked with for decades and decades. So it's a kind of long-standing relationship there, both with their cheese and their milk, and also us with Colston Bassett. What I love about this cheese in particular is the fact that when you eat this, I really encourage you to eat the entire cheese. So get a bit from the center where it's quite blue, get a bit from towards the rind where it's a bit more kind of white and kind of creamy looking, and then also eat the rind as well. I really encourage you to try the rind because there's so much flavor and quite unique flavors in every part of the cheese. So in the center, where the blue is kind of most present, it'll be a bit more acidic, a bit more kind of sharp in flavor. And then let's say you try a bit of the white here under the rind. It'll be a bit sweeter, kind of more creamy. And then the actual rind itself, for me, almost has that flavor kind of like an oat cake. So it's like having your oat cake and cheese in one piece. It's quite unique. But the reason there's so many kind of differences in this cheese is because it's quite a lot going on in a blue cheese. So you have the cheese maturing from the outside in, where the rind is, breaking down the center of the cheese. And then because they have pierced the rind, see those kind of holes there, with stainless steel needles to allow air in and start to begin activating the blue mold that's been added to the milk, you also have a cheese maturing from the inside out. So from all angles, there's something going on with this cheese, all creating different flavors. And the way the mold breaks down the cheese around it it changes the makeup of the milk and of the cheese. And so it's great to be able to have that differentiation between the blue and to have enough white left over to kind of really taste the milk and taste the cheese itself. It's quite a unique one. But one of our directors calls this his desert island cheese because he says that he could just eat this every day in different capacities and never get sick of it. And I'm not the biggest fan of blue cheese, but this one definitely changed my mind. I totally get what he's saying. So even if you're not a huge fan of blue cheese, I would say definitely give this a try. It's quite a unique cheese in that sense. So there you are, Colston Bath Stilton. Great, so that's your selection for July here. We have Duckett's Caerphilly from Somerset, St. James sheep's milk cheese from Cumbria, and Colston Bath Stilton from Nottinghamshire.